All right. Good evening and hello, everyone, and welcome to the second day of How to Buy a Hotel Challenge. Uh, Tonight we have a special guest, Tommy Buyer. So, for those who just want to get an idea, an overview of the challenge, 4 days, one goal, hotel ownership. Day one, yesterday we talked about having a mindset of a hotel owner. Today we're going to talk about how to find and analyze the deal. Tomorrow we're going to talk about how to buy a hotel internationally. And on day four, we're going to talk about how to use OPM, other people's money to fund your deal. Okay. All right. So for those who don't know who I am, my name is Davon Reeves, also known as the Hotel Queen. I've been in the industry for over 15 years. I started off as a front desk agent, navigated my way through corporate, have a book. I keep forget I got to update this slide. It's not 30 million, what is 9 million under assets now. Well, 10 million, 10 million under assets now. Because we just sold two hotels. That's why the assets under management decreased. Throughout my career, managed $1 billion for third of other people's hotels. Close to year to date from 2019, helped create over 200 Black hotel owners and investors get in the game and raised over $4 million for hotel deals for myself and other people as well. So today, we're gonna, like I said, we have a special guest, Tommy Buyer, walking us through how to find and analyze a deal. He knows more about hotels than I do. He is the go-to when it comes to hotels. So talking about, finding deals, and he's been in the industry for what, over almost 20 years, right?
Yeah, a little over 20 years now.
Over
Yeah.
20 years. And so you started off as a valet attendant, right? Did I get it right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we started off as a valet attendant, and then he moved. He was actually one of the. You were the first general manager I met who was under the age of 30. So Tommy and I, we met within this organization called Under 30 Gateway, and he was like, well, not was because he still is like the hots to Tyler, like superstar. He's like chair of Under 30 Gateway. He's a general manager before the age of 30, and then he moved to corporate and now he has his own company and he's working with the REIT. He's asset managed all of my hotels, helped bring it to do full life cycle, meaning bought it and then sell it. And then the two hotels that we sold, I'll walk you through. So these two hotels, the hotel in the middle, it's 145 room Staybridge Suites in Indianapolis Fishers, and then the Hampton Inn and Suites in Scottsburg, Indiana. We bought these two hotels for 17.8 million. The Staybridge Suites, we sold it for how much? It was 14 point what? 14.3.
14 million.
Yeah, about 14 million. And then the Hampton Inn Suites, we sold it for about 8 million. So if you do the math, we sold it for 22 million, which gave us close to a $5 million profit. And thanks to Tommy, he was able to help us find a new management company. So it's three things that makes a hotel successful. The top three things that makes a hotel successful: the location, the brand, and the operator. Right. And so we had the location, we had brands. This is an IHG brand in the middle, and then a Hilton brand, which is the Hampton Inn. But we needed a change in the operator. And so he came in and he pulled his hotel asset management magic on it, and he was able to turn our hotels around into the positive. And currently, we have the Home Two Suites. We still have that. That's in Reno. That was the first hotel acquired. We bought that for $8.3 million. So, all right. So I'm gonna pass it over to Tommy. I'm gonna stop sharing. And so Tommy can share his screen and he's going to walk you all through how to buy a hotel.
Hey guys, thanks for the intro, Devon. I'm gonna
I
get
said this
a
Tommy has the OG, IG. No, Tommy does not have it. The real people really don't have IGs, okay?
I'm gonna pull up a couple websites and show you guys uh, what I'm looking out for. Where are you guys coming in from? Somebody, I like it to be super interactive, so if you're just on here to you know, check a box, we want you to listen and pay attention today. So know where you're coming in from. I'm currently sitting in a hotel in Philadelphia, just outside of Philadelphia, and I live in Virginia. So, all right. So, first thing you gotta do, we gotta find a hotel, right? Like I always have people, and I'm sure Davon is really good about telling you this too, but you need to define that buy box, right? And that's for any commercial real estate. And the buy box is simple, right? It's how much money do I want to spend or can I afford? Right? Is where do I want my property to be located? How many rooms? And then maybe do I want it branded or unbranded and what kind of brands, right? So start to think about those things. Maybe that's more of your homework. And if you haven't done your 300 goals, I'm adding another piece of homework on. So it's day two homework. Define your buy box, right? So define that, right? So you have that figured out. The reason that's important is if you don't figure that out, you're going to be kind of bouncing all over the place. And maybe you'll look at this deal and you'll look at this, you'll spend all your time kind of chasing these squirrels instead of being able to kind of laser in and say, hey, I need to buy, I want to buy let's define it real quick. I want to buy a hotel that's 100 rooms or less in Georgia, and I want it to be a branded hotel, Hilton or Marriott brand or something like that, right? So maybe that's my buy box, right? And it needs to be $5 million or less. Okay, that's what I'm kind of looking for. So as deals come across, you can start to delete them if they don't meet your criteria, right? Or if you're talking to a broker, you can tell the broker, this is what I'm looking for. Or if you meet a potential investor, you can tell them this is what you're trying to buy instead of you going to them saying, well, I just want to, you kind of sound stupid, right? You just like, well, what does that mean? Does that mean you want to buy the Waldorf Astoria? Or do you want to buy the Econo Lodge down the street where the crackheads are hanging out? And I don't mean to like throw shade on Econo Lodge. It might be any other brand. Or the independent motel down the street where the crackheads. I don't know. Which one do you want to buy? Right? Where do you want to buy it? That kind of thing. So define your buy box. Let's see let's see where you guys are checking in from. Let's check. Let's see what you guys are coming up with. We got Tampa and Philly, Miami, Atlanta, South Carolina, Orlando. Oh, another Virginia, Maryland. Okay. Oh, Philadelphia, Lancaster. I'm in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania for one more day. Houston, California, Charlotte. Okay, cool. Well, all right, so now what I've done here, let's see, define it. Now what I've done here is I've gone to a broker's website, broker, and this is the
I
Davis
mean, I think
Deluise
you
Messengers
breaking up a little
DDM.
bit. You
Am
you
I?
breaking up a little bit. Yeah, just a little bit.
Yeah, it's very staticky.
Okay. Um, really? I'm on the hotel internet. Let me see if I can switch over. Maybe I can switch over to my phone. Hold on, give me 1 second. Maybe that'll be better. Just give me 1 second here. Let's try and change it. Hilton's got to give faster internet here.
Uh-oh. Hey. Okay. Well, while Tommy is getting the internet fixed. So basically what he was talking about with the buy box, right? So you have couple questions that you need to think to yourself. And a lot of this information is in the success kit as well. I know some of you already purchased it, but basically it walks you through some of the things that you should look for, right? So where do you want your hotel to be? Right? That's one. Where do you want your hotel to be? Another one should be you know, the cost, right, that Tommy was talking about, right? So that's the link. Okay. Uh, how much you want your hotel to be. Also, you need to think about, you know, do you want to manage it yourself? That's something to think about, and how you can determine that. Typically, rooms like 85 or more rooms, you probably need to bring in a manager. A management company, they could take between like 2 to 4% of your revenue. So sometimes it doesn't make sense. But excuse me, based on you, Tommy, you back?
Yeah, see if that's any better. I just picked a different internet.
No, I think it's better. Yeah, I think it's better. I
Is
think
it
so.
better?
Yeah.
Okay. So
Oh no, it's not better.
still not better?
Mm-mm. No.
Hmm. Still choppy.
What? You good there? Keep going.
I'll just get off the video. Maybe that'll be better. Is that
Okay.
okay?
Yeah, that's fine. You still want to try to share your screen?
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay, hold on. And I was just walking him through how to get buy box.
Yeah. Mm,
Okay.
yeah, all right. Let me know if you can't hear me at all, if at all, and I'll try and do something else. But all right, can you guys hear me okay?
Mm-hmm.
Good.
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah.
All right, so good. Yeah, so we want to talk about the buy box. We went over that. The next thing is let's go find our hotel, right? So this is a hotel brokerage firm. This is DDM. They're based in Charleston, South Carolina. I know the brokers. Devon knows the brokers. They're good guys. And you can just go on their site and go find all the listings that they have, right? And they're listed out here, all over the map, mostly Southeast because they're based down here in Charleston. So I saw where you guys are from. You're kind of from all over, but there's a fair amount of people in the Southeast. So, what you can do on here is you'll see they actually have prices on a lot of these deals, right? So I'm just gonna pick a deal here in a minute, and let's start with how about this? Well, let's see. Yeah, we'll start with this one. So this is a hotel in Hilton Head. Everybody know Hilton Head, South Carolina, pretty
Oh,
popular.
I love it there. Yeah.
Yeah, Devon just came back from there. So what we have here is a Spark. This is the brand by Hilton. So it's a family of hotels. It's a parent company, and it's on Hilton Head Island. Okay. The first thing I do is I want to go see where this thing is, right? So I'm going to go copy the address. I'm going to go put it into Google Maps and take a look at it, right? Because like any real estate, hotels, the location is super important, right? You need to know where this thing is. So let's zoom out for those of you who don't know Hilton Head and let you know where it sits and what it is. Okay. So here's South Carolina. Here's Hilton Head. You have Charleston here, and then you have Savannah down in here. So you're between Savannah and Charleston, but you're closer to Savannah. Okay. So that's where it sits. And then more importantly is where is this on the island? Now, luckily, I know the island, and I can tell you that this part of the island down here in this Coligny circle and this other circle up here is kind of the part of the island you want to be on. There's a lot more going on down here, more restaurants, that kind of thing. So this is a good location for this property. So here's the property, but what do we know right now? It's not oceanfront, right? So that's not good, but it's not the end of the world. And you're also kind of tucked back in here. But if you go to Hilton Head, you'll notice that everything is sort of tucked away. That's how they designed that island. Um, so that's what we know about the location. So I'd say I like the location. I like some things about it, but I don't like other things about it. So luckily we live in a day and age where we have Google, and we can go drive down the street here. Let me know if you can't see anything or if you're lagging a little bit. But what you'll notice is when you're driving into this hotel, you're driving past tennis courts and a parking lot. It's kind of a strange entrance. So I don't love that aspect of it. I think that's not the best, right? So I'm thinking all these things in my mind as I'm looking at a deal. And look at this. I don't know. What is this? More tennis courts, okay? And then your hotel is kind of tucked back in here. It's almost like an afterthought. So right now I'm giving this location like a B minus, C plus, something like that. The other thing you can notice is I just told you it was a Spark, but what does that sign say? That says Best Western. So you know this is a conversion, okay? Now this Google Maps is from 2019, but at some point between 2019 and 2025, this hotel converted to a Hilton property. The other thing I'm noticing is its exterior corridor. And you might hear people talk about that in the hotel industry. It just means you enter through or you exit through the outside or enter through the outside. So there is no interior hallways. So not good or bad necessarily, maybe not the most positive, but in a beach market, it's a little bit more acceptable. But usually exterior corridor, you can't charge as higher rates, and you have trouble with your housekeepers because they don't want to be out there walking around in 90-degree weather. They'd rather go work at a different hotel. So keep that in mind, okay? So those are some of the things that jump out at me right away. And, stop, ask questions as they come up, let me know. The other thing I'm doing is I'm just running some real rough math when I'm just looking at the deal. So this says 8.75 million. And then it says room count 63 rooms. You see that? 63 right here, 8.75 million. So let's just go do the math. 875, 1, 2, 3, 4 divided by 63. So the price per room or price per key is 138,000. So I've got to decide, is that a good number? Do I feel okay with that? Is that too high? What do I think about it? And people always ask, is that a good price per key or is it a bad price per key? And the truth is there's no magic number there.
He means price per door.
Price per door, price per key, that kind of thing.
In hotel world is price per key.
Yeah, there's really no magic number. And the reason is, the Ritz-Carlton in Manhattan will sell at a different price per key than this Spark in Hilton Head. So how you kind of gauge that is what are the comps in that market? So what have other things in that market sold for on a price per key that are similar brand, similar vintage, meaning similar age. So this thing is built in 1990. And you don't have any extra land, really. You got 0.93 acres, so you don't get a lot of land with this hotel. You're just getting pretty much where the hotel is sitting on. So I'd say 138 price per key doesn't feel terrible to me, particularly because you're in Hilton Head and you have a Hilton branded property. The other thing you can see from the pictures is this looks like a newly renovated hotel, and it would have to be because this Spark brand by Hilton is pretty new. It's only about 2, 3 years old, 3 years old, something like that. So that means it's a little bit newer. So you can see you're not going to have to put a lot of money into the furnishings or fixtures here, right? Because this all looks pretty good, right? That's your lobby. It looks pretty good. This looks like a Photoshop picture, but the exterior kind of is what it is. You can tell from here that they did the minimal amount of work in the bathrooms. They didn't touch any of this. This is all old fixtures, old tile. This is newer, and you might say, well, how do you know that? Well, it's similar to looking at a house, right? Or an apartment complex or what have you. If you guys are looking at it, you can tell, is this old wood? Is this kind of a newer look, a newer design? You can tell here, this is a newer design here, newer colors and that kind of thing, newer light fixtures. versus the older stuff. So that much is helpful because it means I'm probably not gonna have to put a lot more money into this hotel when I buy it. All right. So I'm doing some quick math there. I'm saying, okay, that's enough for me to keep going. I like the fact that it's, in this market and on Hilton Head and that kind of thing. So I'm gonna fill this out real quick. This is like your confidentiality agreement. And it'll give you access to all the data. So we're going to go look at the OM, or your offering memorandum, right? And an offering memorandum, in case, for those of you who don't know, is just telling you everything you need to know about the property, right? It's going to give you, it's more than an executive summary. Executive summary doesn't give you that much. This OM will give you a lot more information, a lot more detailed information. So let me move this around and zoom in for you guys, make it a little bit bigger. So there's a lot. They're usually full of all kinds of information, but here we can see, let me zoom in a little bit more. All right, maybe that's all right. It's a little big, but that's okay. So here's what we can see, right? 8.75 million. We know that's the list price, 63 rooms. They're saying that the estimate for the property improvement plan, which is the same as a renovation, but let's stop there for a second. It's called a PIP, P-I-P. Not, yeah, it's a PIP, right? Not P-I-M-P, PIP, P-I-P. And what a PIP is it's issued by a brand, and what they do is they come out and they send somebody to the hotel and they say, you need to renovate, you need to change your mattresses or your TVs or whatever to get up to the latest brand standards. And there's a cost associated with that. Now, the brand's not going to tell you what that cost is. You have to go figure that out on your own. The broker saying the PIP here is 31,000, which is really nothing on an $8 million hotel, right? That's not a big PIP. Now they're saying it's a $3.1 million down payment. Your NOI, or your net operating income, is 849,000. But now keep in mind, look at this says, be careful with these brokers. These guys are good. What are they saying? That's not the historical NOI. That is what they're projecting your NOI to be in 2 years. So they could make that number be 3 million. That could be any number. I don't really know. They're just predicting the future here. So be careful there. That's a really important thing to know. And the reason they're giving you this future NOI number is they just renovated this hotel. So that means the historical data is not as good as you would expect. So this one's a little bit more complicated. We probably shouldn't have started here, but we're going down this road. So just bear with me. So the all-in cap rate, everybody know what cap rate is? Anybody need an explanation on cap rate?
Yes, I need an explanation.
Okay, explanation. So it
Yes, and
stands
what
for,
is NOI again? I'm sorry.
okay, you're good. No, you're good. This is good questions. NOI is your net operating income. And what it is it's all of your revenues minus all the expenses of the property. That is your net operating income. It's not net profit, but it's sort of like net operating profit. It's everything except for debt service, right? So you're not taking your mortgage out of there. So think of that as the profit the hotel's making, but it's not cash flow. You get that? It's the number before cash flow.
Yes, before your operating cost.
It's your revenue minus all your operating costs,
And the cap
except
rate
for interest or principal.
is cap rate saying that they can't raise the interest rate above that.
You're talking about an interest rate cap. It's a little different than this. So, but that's a good guess. A cap rate stands for capitalization rate. And what that is it's determining essentially what percentage of NOI, what's your percentage of NOI of the purchase price, right? So look, what you're doing here, here's how you calculate it. Let me go back to my calculator here. So the cap rate the NOI is 849,000 in this example, 849,691, okay? And we're buying the hotel, assuming we're gonna pay full price, we're gonna buy it for 8.75 million, okay? So there's your cap rate, really, 9.71. So you multiply it times 100, so 9.71. And what does that mean? What it means is, let's say it was a 10 cap deal, 10% cap rate. It means in 10 years, you'd have enough, you would have earned enough net operating income to pay back what you paid for the hotel, right? Because 10%, it'd be 10% of the purchase price, essentially. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Right. So what it means is the lower the cap rate, right, the better the deal is for the seller, right? If you're selling, you want to sell at a low cap rate. And if you're buying, you want to buy at a high cap rate, right? And right, so it is, as an example, let's say we own this hotel. We own the hotel and it's making, let's just use this number as an example, 849,000. So let's take 849,691. Let's go real clear. And we want to sell it at an 8 cap. So I'm going to divide that by 0.08. Now, if I sell it at an 8 cap, I'm selling it at 10.6 million. That makes sense? But here they're selling it on a projected 9.4 cap, which is close to 8.7 million. They're adding in a couple other expenses to get there, right? But if you're buying, you want to buy at a high cap rate, which means it's going to take you less time to pay off what you paid through your net profit. You guys tracking with me? I know we're 7:30 on a Tuesday, but
And you said if I'm buying, I
Repeat
want to
that.
buy it at a
Yeah.
higher.
you want to
Oh.
buy at a high cap rate. If you're buying, when you're buying a hotel, you always want to buy it at a higher cap rate if you can. And when you're selling, you want to sell it at a low cap rate if you can. And the reason is, let's say I'm buying a deal. Let's say I'm buying a deal at an 8 cap, just like we just calculated, 8% cap rate. I then have to go get a loan, right? And the interest rate on the loan right now, depending on what deal you're buying, might be 7.5%, 8%. Maybe it's a little bit higher than 8%. So if I'm buying a deal that net operating income is generating, like I bought it at an 8 cap, so my net operating income is 8% of my purchase price, like this, and my interest rate is also 8%. Is that a good position to be in or not?
I don't think so.
It's bad, right? Because I got to pay the bank 8%, and my deal's only returning me 8% on what I paid. So you want to have a good spread there, right? You want to make sure your interest rate is lower than whatever your cap rate is, right? Because that gives you some margin there to make sure you're able to pay your bills and you're able to pay your investors, right? And pay yourselves. But if you don't have that spread, the deal gets pretty thin pretty quickly. So I know we're going down. This may be a little bit more advanced for you guys. I don't want to get too far in the weeds, but it's something you got to think about when you're analyzing a deal.
Tommy,
Yep.
you
Go
selling on a lower cap rate. I didn't understand that. Could you go back over that part?
Sure, of course. Well, in this example, look at this example. They're talking about a 9.4 cap. That's 8.7 million. But if you could sell it at an 8 cap, we just calculated you would be selling it at 10.6 million. Now, there's other things at play, right? You might say to somebody, well, it's an 8 cap and you should buy it at 10.6 million. And then they're going to say, if they're smart, well, 10.6 million divided by 63 rooms is 168,000 per room, and I don't want to pay that much, right? So when you're buying a hotel, it's important. People really buy it on a couple of different ways. They'll buy it on purchase price. They'll just look at the price and they'll say, like, all right, how does this compare to other deals? They'll look at the per key price, the price per key, like we just calculated. They'll look at a cap rate. like we just looked at, the last thing they'll look at is a room revenue multiple. And that is just saying, how much, what's the room revenue? So we can get down to this deal and talk about it, but let's just for argument's sake, say this room revenue at this hotel is 2.7 million. Okay. And we're buying it for 875. Okay. And it's making 2.7 million on the top line. So the room revenue multiple is 3.24, meaning it's 3.24 times the room revenue to get the purchase price.
3 years and 24 months to make the profit back. Okay.
Well, at least on the top line though, right?
Right.
So that's just top line. And it's just the way people price hotels. Usually when you're buying a hotel, you're going to buy it between 3 and 4 times a room revenue multiple. The higher the multiple, usually the kind of, I would say, I don't know about less sexy, but kind of the hotel is probably an economy hotel, may not be as nice. The lower this room revenue multiple is a kind of a night, usually, no, excuse me, it's the other way around. If it's like a 4.0, usually you're buying a nicer hotel, and if it's a lower multiple, it's kind of a not as nice of a hotel. So there's a lot of different ways you have to look at, how you're gonna buy a property. This one, again, this is all projections, so you have to be careful. So let's keep running through this this OM, and I'll kind of point out things that I look at. There's all kinds of other things that you may want to review on your own that may stick out to you, but it's giving you all kinds of information, stuff we've already been over. Look, built in 1990, but it was converted to a Spark in 2024, historically a Best Western. Yeah, we know that because Google Maps already told us that. Construction is important. This one's built on concrete and steel. Okay, so that's good. You might see stick built is another way that they're built. This is telling you what they did in the past, what kind of renovation they did. They're saying they spent $36,000 per key. Although this says $36, they meant $36,000 per key. So they did a lot of changes there, which is good to see. So let's skip past all this. Let's get to the financials, right? That's what we're here to talk about. How are we analyzing a deal? So these are all historical Best Western numbers. So they're a little skewed because this hotel is not a Best Western anymore. It's a Hilton branded property. But you can kind of see, oddly enough, they pulled out 2019, so which is weird. A lot of people will pull out 2020 due to COVID, so I don't really know why they don't have 2019 in here. But you can see revenues, it did 1.92 million. The best year was 2.1, and then it kind of dropped off from there. But this may have been a conversion year because you can see the average rate here, which is your ADR, went from 139, 158, and then dropped to 127 here. And let's go over the quick math on this. Anybody know how to calculate occupancy? Anybody want to tell me? What's the formula for occupancy, hotel occupancy? So the formula is real simple. It's your rooms sold divided by your available rooms. And look, this pro forma, this historical has an error here. This says 3,969. 3,969 divided by 22,995 is not 56%, just in case everybody's struggling with math today. But anyways, occupancy is just rooms available divided by rooms sold divided by rooms available. So just double check it. In 2017, they sold 13,636 rooms, and we had 22,995 rooms available. So that's 59.29%. So that's right. And to get your rooms available, it's just your rooms in the hotel, 63 times number of rooms in a number of days in the year. You got that? 63 times 365. Okay, that's how many rooms you can sell over the course of a year. And for those of you who don't know, hotels are a perishable product. They don't get, for the most part, they don't get moldy and you have to throw them away. Not that kind of perishable. It means I can only sell the number of rooms I have today. I can't sell today's rooms tomorrow, right? Just like a airline, just like a movie theater. When the day's gone, my opportunity to make revenue for that day is over with, right? Not every industry is that way, but hotels are a little unique that way. So you want to make sure you're selling a lot of rooms as much as possible. It may seem, pretty basic, but some people forget that. ADR is your average daily rate. And in case you want to know that formula, it's your room revenue divided by the rooms you sold, okay? And that can be for a day, a year, a week, a month, anytime. So for the year here, they sold $1,902,358 for the year. And they sold 13,636 rooms, okay? So the average rate was $139.51. So what that's telling you is the average rate we sold each room for. Okay. That makes sense? Got it? Everybody tracking with me? We sleep, Bueller here. All right, next one, RevPAR. Okay, anybody know what RevPAR means? Somebody? Don't chat GPT it. Tell me if you know it.
Revenue per available room.
Oh, I like it. How do we calculate it? Thank you.
Total revenue divided by number of rooms.
All right, good.
All right, Melvin. Okay.
Thank you, Melvin. You're a genius. I love it. Total revenue divided by available rooms. So the RevPAR is important because RevPAR is saying it's averaging all the rooms you didn't sell at $0. So what it's a measure of is how, productive or how efficiently are you running your property, right? Because I don't want to get $0 for a room. I want to sell it for something, right? So RevPAR is important because the higher the RevPAR, the better chance you have of making profit on your hotel, right? Because if I'm just factoring in a bunch of $0, it's hard for me to make a profit in my hotel. So the industry focuses on RevPAR because RevPAR again is going to tell you usually how profitable can your hotel be, right? So if you just focus on occupancy, like what do I care if I sold 22,995 rooms, but I sold them all at $1? How much money did I make for the year? 22,995, right? So occupancy is important, but I also have to make sure that I'm paying attention to my RevPAR, right? And average rate is important, but I can't go to the bank and say, hey, look, I sold my average rate for the year was $1,000. Well, how many rooms did you sell, Tommy? Well, I got one guy to do it. So how much money did I make? I made $1,000. You got to have the right price out there. So RevPAR is really saying, how did you balance out your occupancy with your average rate? So, all right. So those are some of you got to understand those basics before you can kind of really move on to some of these deal analyzers and things like that. But this is really just a summary P&L here. So you have your room revenue, you have other income. Other income, it's like resort fees, pet fees, cancellation, guest laundry, gift shop, that kind of stuff. Then you have all of your expenses by department. Then you're going to move on here and then ask if you have questions. We're going to move on to your other departments here, your A and G, so it's administration in general. That's going to be like where your credit card fees go. That's going to be where you're paying your general manager and stuff like that. Then you have marketing, where you're going to pay maybe salespeople, things like that. You have franchise fees, okay? So that is how much are we going to pay to the franchise, right? If I'm going to be part of Hilton or Marriott or Best Western or whoever, I got to pay them something to be part of their program. So in this case, they're paying about 11 or 12%. So does that surprise anybody? Does it sound like a high number? You guys think it was high or low?
Seems high.
Okay. So, depends on the brand, that could be as high as 14%. You can see it here, 13.9%. It's a lot of money, but the brand needs to be driving value to your hotel. They need to be bringing people in. You need to be able to charge higher rates because you're branded. Utility costs, that's basic, and then your maintenance costs, also kind of a self-explanatory number. So now we're moving on to GOP, gross operating profit. That's different from NOI, right? GOP is your revenue minus all your operating expenses except for your fixed expenses. So that's everything we just went over. So your GOP is, it's really more what your hotel can control, right? The hotel doesn't have as much control over property taxes and insurance.
Mr. Sonny,
Yep.
I just wanted to make sure I got it right. The red part is the point you said, and pay attention, is how you balance out your occupancy with your value rate, right?
With your average rate. Yeah, you're right. No, you're right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Say with your average rate.
Average rate. Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
Was that you, Michael, or somebody else?
Yes.
Michael?
Yes, it was me, Mike.
Okay. Oh, good. Very good. All right. Thanks, Mike. So the next thing is you got your property taxes and insurance. You have a management fee if you're paying a third party management company in here. And then you have your net operating income, which we talked about earlier. But if you remember, they went back here and said that hotel was going to make, I don't know, what was it, 800 or 900,000 in NOI? What was the number? Anybody remember? I think it was eight
Like
something.
869 or something,
Yeah.
849.
849, right? Good memory. So they're saying 849,000. The problem is the best this hotel ever did was 790,000, and that's going back to 2021. Right? So the issue with this deal is if I go to a bank and I say, hey, I want to pay 8.7 million for this, they're going to say, well, okay, but the best it ever did was 790,000. And I know you think it's going to do a lot better because it's a Hilton and so on and so forth, but it also did 478,000 the following year. So when the bank's going to look at this and they're going to start to say this is a risky deal, right? Especially if you're new to the hotel industry, and they're going to say, well, you don't know anything about hotels. So yeah, we'll lend it to you, but we're going to lend it to you at a high interest rate in a high LTV or LTC, meaning, or excuse me, low LTV, low LTC, meaning you're going to have to put more equity in this deal to get it done. And I've seen that happen time and time and time again. So your only options then are to negotiate the price down or to move on to a new deal, right? So, here's the pro forma. And again, if you're not familiar with the term, pro forma is just meaning essentially a forecast into the future, right? And now they're saying, okay, the best it ever did was 1.9 or maybe it did 2 million, and now it's going to do all of a sudden do 2.6 million. This doesn't really, quite honestly, it doesn't feel that crazy to me in terms of some brokers go a little bit, more aggressive. I do think moving from a Best Western to a Spark is going to be really helpful because you're going from Best Western to Hilton. So I don't think they're too crazy on the revenue side, and this doesn't feel like that bad of a pro forma. So I'll have to give it to these guys. Some brokers' pro formas are just terrible. So this one feels a little bit more realistic. So keep asking questions as you have them. In this case, not every broker will do it, but I like that these guys do it. They're giving you more of a detailed analysis of what the deal is going to cost, how much you could earn on it, what the IRR is going to be, all those things. So they're saying you're going to be all in for 8.9 million, which is 142,000 per key. But look, they got a 6.75% interest rate. That's not going to happen on this deal. And I just told you why. This deal, if you're lucky, you're at an 8.25% interest rate, something like that. Maybe a little bit higher. So now they've got your NOI here minus your debt. Here's your cash flow. Okay. Now keep in mind, look at year one. What do you got here? Negative 30,000. So you're not cash flowing year one. So you got to have money in the bank to cover that, or else you're going to be in trouble. And you start cash flowing these future years. All right. So now down here, they're calculating your IRR, your levered internal rate of return. And in case you're not familiar with that, this is how you're calculating it. Your initial equity into the deal, 3.1 million. Here's your cash flow before debt service, cash flow after debt service. So put 3.1 million in. We lost money year one. We made 300,000 year two, another 360 year three. We're selling it year five. Okay. They said you're going to sell at 12.862 million. So it feels like a high number to me. And it feels like a high number for a number of reasons. One, if you calculate that on a per key basis, it's probably too high. Two, what happened? The hotel renovated back in 2024. Now the hotel's 6-7 years older. So that means the next person that comes in is going to have to put money into it. So they're going to discount their purchase price as a result. And that's oftentimes what brokers fail to do. They're just going to say, oh, yeah, you're going to sell this for, $4 million more than you paid. Sure, maybe. But somebody's going to come in and say, I got to put 2 million in it. So that now the 4 million turns into 2 million, right? And now your IRR, your internal rate of return, starts to drop. But they're not going to put that on paper, right? But again, I'm not a broker. You're hearing that from me. So surprise, surprise, the deal's priced too high. Okay. I think the location's average, but the market is a good market. I think it's nice that they renovated it. But the price is way too high. They need to come down, $1 million, $1.5 million for this deal to work. What questions do we have, guys? I know I'm covering a lot today, but it's a kind of a wide-ranging topic. So
I have one.
yeah, please.
So on year one, when you're negative 30,000, and you need money to cover that, is that money covering, like, that's your profit, the 30,000? Is that not operating cost where you're paying your staff and your management team?
Yeah, it's a good question. So that would be after you've already paid everybody and you've paid the bank. You still have to come up with 30,000. That's essentially going to come out of whatever operating account you have, right? So usually when you're buying a hotel or any business, and they don't really have it here, but you should have some working capital, right? So you want to start with some money in the bank, right? Because you don't really know what you're getting into. Maybe there's some money you got to put in the hotel day one. You got to pay payroll, you got to pay utility deposits, all that stuff. So you need to have a little bit of money in the bank, almost like when you're moving to a new house. You want to make sure you got some money in the bank because maybe you got to pay movers, maybe I got to pay for deposits, blah, blah, blah. I got to get the new internet going, all these different things, right? That stuff adds up. You need to have money in the bank when you're doing any kind of operating business because you got to pay bills day one. But in this case, they're not cash flowing enough to cover your mortgage, so you've got to come up with this 30,000. And to see a broker put this on paper, you should kind of pause because you don't really ever see that, right? So I think they're being fair and transparent, but that's also a big swing. You're going from negative 30,000 to positive 300,000. It doesn't mean you can't do it. That's just a big jump, right? So it's a good question. What other questions do we have?
What is debt service?
That's your think about it as your mortgage. That's your principal and interest that you got to go pay to the bank on your loan, right? That's debt service.
And unlevered and levered, I can't see it now. You have to scroll down.
Yeah. So levered means you leveraged the property. So you took out a loan. Okay. That's leveraged. Leveraged, same thing. I took out a loan. Unlevered means I just paid pure cash for the deal. And you might say, well, why is that lower? It's because you're not benefiting from using the bank's money, right? You're just having to put your own money in to do that deal.
Mhm.
And that kind of gets into that difference between interest rate and cap rate that we talked about. If you don't have that good spread there, your levered IRR is gonna be lower. So a lot of times Davon and I get the question of what's a good IRR? I can tell you that most people who are doing deals like it to be 20 to 25%, something like that. Some groups for a really, really good deal might dip below 20, but not often. And the reason is there's always going to be some variable that you didn't factor in, right? So if I do a deal at 24% and all of a sudden that 24 turns into a 20 because COVID happened or who knows what happens, I'm still okay at a 20. But if I do a deal at an 18 and it turns into a 12, well, that's tough because, and this is going to go down a whole separate rabbit hole, but Davon at some point will talk to you guys about GPs and LPs and promotes and all that stuff. And the lower this levered return gets, the less money there is for you to pay yourself and your investors.
Quick question for you. If this was a Hampton or Fairfield Inn, in terms of age, in terms of purchasing the hotel, because I know if I do a Hampton, I want to at least have 10 years or 20 years, because after the 10 years, I want the people buying it being able to extend the flag. What's the furthest back that if I want the brand to stay on, should I look at like it's 25? I should look at anything older than 2015 or 2010. What's your recommendation there?
But I need Melvin. I need you to lead this webinar next time. So it's a really good question. So to bring everybody else up to Melvin's level real quick, what he's referring to is you would sign a license agreement or a franchise agreement with whoever the brand is. Let's say Hampton Inn, right? And that agreement is going to be for a period of could be 5, 10, 15, 20 years, sometimes 25. And the brand is only going to give you a certain amount of term. They're only going to give you a certain amount of years, and that's going to vary depending on the age of the hotel, the location of the hotel, and also what kind of revenue that hotel's producing. And they'll vary it depending on who's buying it, who the sponsor is. So in general terms, a lot of these brands won't go longer than 40 years on the asset. So, if that hotel was built in, 1985 right now, the brands are going to be pushing to get those out of their system. And they're not going to give a lot of term to somebody who's buying it. And what Melvin's referring to is if you buy a hotel and they give you a 10-year term, and you own it for 5 years, that means the next person who's buying it from you only has 5 years, assuming the brand's not going to extend that. And because of that, they're going to pay you a discounted price because they don't have that certainty that it's going to still be a Hampton. Now it might be a Melvin Inn & Suites. And Melvin Inn & Suites, which I think sounds really nice, is not as good as a Hampton Inn & Suites. So it's worth less money. So to answer your question, Melvin, again, that kind of varies. I really like to go into a deal with a 15-year license. Again, to use your math, knowing that if I hold it for 5 years, the next person has it for 10, or maybe they can negotiate a 15. I don't like to do it on a 10-year deal because there's not as much term on the back end. However, these brands keep coming out with new conversion brands and they keep allowing you to kind of stay on at a lesser brand. So that's something else, another story for another day. Mike, you got a question?
No, that was earlier.
That was your old one? Okay, I didn't.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, what else you guys got? What else can we answer tonight for you? These are good questions, guys. Thank you.
Realistically, how long, and I know that depends on the person, and how much work they're willing to put into this. How long can you expect this stuff to like sink in and you know what you're doing?
Yeah, it is. So I'd say with anything, it's like the reps you get, right? So it's, if you want to spend, an hour a day sort of studying deals and studying, listening to podcasts or whatever, I think it'll sink in a little bit more for you. But if somebody wants to just sort of dabble in it and not really spend a lot of time on it, then it's going to take longer and may never sink in, right? I mean, I'm fortunate because, and Devon is too, we went to school for this. We grew up in the industry, so it's kind of second nature to us. I assume most of you guys have full-time jobs and other commitments, so you have to kind of dedicate and carve out time outside of that to do it. I have one group I'm working with, and these guys say what they do is they finish their job, they go home, they eat dinner, and then they spend the next 2, 3, 4 hours searching for deals and learning more about the industry. Now I think that's outside of the norm, but these people are really committed to getting a deal done. And I think they're going to get one done. But if you want to, just like anything, if you want to just go in, listen to a podcast every so often and kind of mess around with it, it's going to be tough. This is not hard math. It's not a hard industry to understand, but it's nuanced, right? It's a little different. But it's not hard to understand the math. It's basic, we're not talking about engineering and teaching you how to we're not teaching you how to build a hotel. We're teaching you how to buy a hotel.
So can I ask you a question, Mr. Tim? Like,
Sure.
like in Atlanta, we have hotels. So it's like Fulton Industry is different from the hotels in Buckhead, right?
Yep.
So like a hotel, okay, like the Hyatt is across the street, but it's a hotel named Cole that I just got familiar with. I'm not sure if you heard of them. Colee, but I don't know. But it's an upscale type of hotel.
It's called Coley. I know what you're talking about. It
Coley.
used to be the W.
Yeah, okay, Coley. And it's just like I never knew. I'm from Atlanta. I never knew about this brand. But is it a part of like let's say a Hilton? Because it seems like they be pretty busy, But it's like a new hotel. I don't think is very popular. Or is it?
Yeah. So what you're referring to is a soft brand.
Okay.
And it's if you see here, it says Hotel Collet Autograph Collection. And what Autograph Collection is, if you just do a little bit more research, what you'll see real quick is Autograph is a soft brand by Marriott, right?
Oh, okay.
And so to your point, they probably are busy because they're attached to Marriott, but soft brand means you can call it the Hotel Mike or Mike's Hotel, whatever. You can call it something that's a little bit more, it sounds like an independent, it feels like an independent hotel,
Yeah, it
but
does.
it's still part of a brand, right?
Okay,
So
understand.
you're seeing
Tommy,
there.
that hotel used to be a W.
Yeah, I saw that from the
Yeah.
Google Maps. But so yeah, but to your point, there are a bunch of different brands out there. Not all brands are created equal, not all locations are created equal. But I do like soft brands. I do think those are sort of the, hotels of the future, if you will, because I think people they like to get their points and they like to make sure the hotel has some standards, but they also want to stay in something that's a little unique and a little different. That's what I like to stay in when I travel.
And that's what I had the feeling when I'm at this hotel. It's kind of unique but different type of feeling. But okay, I understand now.
Yep. And all of the brands have those. Hilton, they all have that stuff.
Okay, I understand.
I had a question about the Hampton Inn and the Staybridge that y'all sold. You got a big profit on it. So were the hotel underperforming when you bought them? Performing below the competition where they should be, or what enables you to get that, $5 million profit on selling the Hampton?
Yeah, I'll speak to it a little bit. I don't know if Devon wants to jump in, but essentially those two hotels were owned by a group who they were in trouble during COVID, so Devon and her partners were smart enough to take advantage of the fact that that owner wasn't doing well and needed a kind of a cash bailout there. So he was almost in, he may have been in default on his loan, so they brought enough money to kind of straighten the deal back up. But I'd say they did okay up until the point of, they end up having to call me 2 years ago, and I'll use this as a, platform to sort of pat myself on the back. But as Devon said, we brought in a new management company, we brought in new general managers, we brought in new directors of sales, we made all kinds of other changes, and we took advantage of some good market timing and took advantage of some good business that was in-house, and we're able to sell those hotels at the right time. Now, that being said, there's a chance that Staybridge will sell for more money in the future, but it also needed about $3 million in renovations, which at the time, the investors didn't want to put into it. So
Right.
I still argue it's good timing. That Hampton Inn sold for $9 million, and there's no way that hotel was going to sell for any more money than that, and it was a really good price and really good timing, and the people that ended up buying it own the hotel next door, so it's sort of fortuitous for us. So
Okay.
there's no magic wand, there's just being in the right place at the right time and then making the right moves while you're operating it.
And also having the right people on your team. So we were fortunate enough to bring you in, Tommy, as a good asset manager to really get in on the details, because myself and others, we didn't have the time to get really in the nitty gritty, because we were doing other things. But, by bringing in, a lot of times what people do when they have multiple assets, they bring in a third party asset manager, like Tommy, to kind of help with the details, and that way just solely focus on it and just kind of help make those decisions and be the quarterback. So anyone who is trying to buy a hotel, I do not recommend that you try to do it on your own. You won't get that far. If you do get that far, you'll make a mistake and probably lose money. Tommy and I have seen it both time and time again. We've given advice. Folks don't listen. They try to go the cheap route. There's no cheap route when doing a hotel. It's a multi-million-dollar asset. So we definitely recommend to hire a consultant. Every deal is different. So whatever it's no, every deal is different. So you have to do it by like a case by case. But the biggest thing is having the right people on your team who's done multiple deals, who've seen many deals go and come and bring different advice to get the deal done and make it more profitable. And I've seen
Right.
it where if you start off in the beginning right, then you can finish with that high profit. Sometimes people start off bad, and Tommy can work miracles, but sometimes some deals you just can't work miracles on because you started off wrong. And so that's the importance of having the right people, on your team. So working with someone like Tommy, who I always recommend, to help you, especially if you're looking to buy a hotel within 6 to 12 months, because it's hard to get lending if you don't have the right people on your team. They'll definitely deny you if you don't have any experience. And it's hard to raise capital to bring in equity partners as well. So we're going to wrap this up. We're over 8 o'clock. So we'll have time for maybe about one or two more questions. Michael, do you have your hand up?
Yes, Miss Reeves, you said that Colay, you guys refer to it as a soft what type of hotel?
A soft brand. So that's basically when an independent hotel and the brand gets married. So if you
Okay.
notice, if you go on the website, Colay is a part of the Autograph collection. So that means it's a part of the Marriott reward system, the Marriott reservation system. So when someone is looking for a Marriott property, it'll pop up.
Okay, I understand.
But if you didn't know, just passing by it or even walking inside, you wouldn't even know it's a part of Marriott. So
No,
that's
I
why
never knew
it's
that.
like
Yeah,
independent hotel and a branded hotel getting married.
yeah, thank you so much, Miss Reeves.
You call me Devon. You have to call me Miss Reese.
All right, Miss
Devon,
Reeves.
I got a
Davon.
quick question.
Yes.
Tommy mentioned that you and him went to school. Can you mention what schools they are?
Oh, no. I mean, it's so many different hospitality programs, and not all hospitality is
Oh,
focused on hotel ownership. So he was just saying
Okay.
how he was answering your question about, analyzing deals. And basically he was just saying, like, with this industry, we've been in the industry for over 15 years. So some of the deals we can just look at it and glance at it and see if it's a good deal or not. That's what he was saying. So I wouldn't go off on the
Okay.
weeds with the school. Like, I see where you going. I wouldn't even worry about that. You just need to worry about
Okay.
analyzing the deal once a week. Yeah, just don't worry about that. Just start
Okay.
analyzing the deal. You and I, we talk. So start looking at apartment buildings
Yeah.
first and start analyzing those once a week. Because it really takes practice, and you just have to just
Yeah.
start analyzing. There's no, the next time you and I meet, we
Okay.
can talk about how you can use Chat GPT to analyze deals, which makes it a lot easier and faster. So there's a lot of tools that
Okay.
Tommy and I didn't have starting off. So look, Adrian, it's so much easier, So I've taught her different prompts
Mhm.
that helped her get proposals, and I'm sure she uses to analyze deals.
Mhm.
It just makes it so much easier. So it's a lot more shortcuts now than it was when Tommy
Oh,
and I
that
got
sounds
started.
good.
Yeah. So I see where you're
Thank
going.
you.
That's stop, pump the brakes. Yeah.
Okay.
A question. I just want
All
to know,
right.
like, if someone want to transition into the industry, like you say, to get their foot in the door, starting from like an inside out view, kind of have, you two have done, what would be some of like the better entry roles someone could look at to like make that transition into the hospitality industry?
Well, it depends on what you're trying to do. Are you trying to own, or are you trying to work into the hotel? Because
Like both, but like to start off to say, what, let me go work in a hotel and see it from the inner working sides of it. But say you're coming from oil and gas or healthcare, something like that. Like, how would you?
working in a hotel is different than owning a hotel. So if you work in it, you kind of understand from an operational standpoint, but it won't make sense from an ownership standpoint.
Oh, okay.
So I really, the biggest thing, I mean, you can work in it if you want to, but the biggest thing is really trying to understand the ownership side of it and understanding how to analyze deals. And the biggest thing is, do you have the money to do it? Right. So,
Gotcha.
because it's expensive, and working in a hotel ain't gonna help you get the money. So, because it's extremely expensive to own a hotel. So it
Gotcha.
said,
Ms.
Miss
Reeves.
part a day two. Is there a way? Yeah, there's a way that you can get the replay. Let's see. Let me put the link in the chat. With the dashboard. And then I'll send an email out as well for the folks who want to get the replay if you missed day one. Okay. Oh, it's a question. We got one time for maybe a couple more. Maybe one more question. It's two raised. So these are the last two questions. So Michael, you had a question?
Look, Miss Devani, right? That's what you want me to call you now, Miss
Davon.
Reeves. Devon. All right.
Davon.
All right, Miss Devon. Listen, would you offer, like, since you're in Atlanta, would there be a mentorship kind of that you offer, or could you, for like
Yeah, we
beginners? Because
do.
I'm like, everything is new to me, like the
Right.
hotel thing.
Right. No, yeah, that's something that we offer, Tommy and I offer. Depending on where you are. If you need more hand holding, that's Tommy.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. I would love for you to hold
His
my
service
hand.
is a little bit more expensive because he holding you, but I will say Tommy does deliver. He just left the closing last week.
Yeah, I'll
Um,
pay. I'll pay. I'm just really
yeah.
passionate about it, so I'll pay.
Okay. All right, Tommy. But let me put Tommy's email address back in here. And then
All right.
I'll also send it out in the recap for the folks who need who need a little hand holding.
All right.
Yeah,
Thank
we
you.
closed on a deal with a lady. It was her first time property in Louisiana. Partnered up with her on the deal, so it was
I met
it's
her.
good. It's good.
I met her this time last year, and she was working with someone else. You know, it didn't work out. That person didn't help her much she would like. Got connected with me. I connected her with Tommy, and she probably was under contract for that hotel probably 6 months after her and I met.
Wow.
And they just closed, not because of her, just because of, you know, finance and stuff, because, you know, how the loan was structured. But Tommy, what closing was what last? Because you closed when I was in Belize, right?
Yeah, we closed last week. Now she worked
And
hard
I
on
met
that
her in
deal. She
Belize.
did.
Isn't that crazy? I met her in Belize. I got to tell her that I met her in Belize, and y'all closed while I was in Belize. But yeah, so that's the type of you know, hand holding that we do.
That's great. Must be nice, Belize.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, so okay, good. So I put his contact information in there, and then I'll put it in the recap as well. And then so is it E Styling Harrison?
Estlin?
Oh, Estlin. Okay.
I'm the one that work at the hotel, right? I'm actually a lender also, but on the back end, I'm kind of wanting to just relearn a lot of things. But I'm getting from you guys that one of the most important things is just really, do you guys like to stabilize hotels more than anything? That you'll catch them when they're underperforming, and then you'll kind of put the right people in place to kind of stabilize it and get it back, then sell it out from there.
Yeah, we do that. I mean, that's essentially what we did with the Indiana properties. We came in and stabilized the hotels. That's some people who are residential is called value add. So yeah, that's what we did. We came in and stabilized it, brought in a new management company. Well, we brought in two management companies. The first time we came, we switched it. That management company didn't work out, and then we got another management company. And then brought in Tommy as well, changed the culture. So yeah, we came in and stabilized it and increased revenues, increased you know, guest satisfaction scores, and we were able to turn around and generate a profit.
But you won't be able to see that unless you get documents, obviously some type of work. You know what I mean? How do you kind of determine that without, you know, if you see a hotel that you just kind of riding by in the middle of nowhere, or possibly in the area, good market area?
Oh yeah, you would have to get numbers and do due diligence. Like you wouldn't know it's under. I mean, you can kind of tell a little bit from just. I mean, I can go in some hotels and tell that they underperforming. I can look, it's too many staff, it's not enough staff. You know, the hotel operation. I mean, I can just eyeball it. Tommy can probably do it as well. But you really don't get it until you get the numbers. And sometimes people, when you get the information, they lie about the numbers and stuff. So but yeah, so but didn't want to hold y'all too much longer. So we will be back tomorrow on tomorrow at 7 p.m. We're gonna talk about how to find a hotel, how to buy a hotel internationally. I definitely put Tommy's contact information in there as well. We do offer programs for folks who want to get into it. I would say Tommy is for folks who's looking to buy probably within 6 to 12 months. So Melvin, you probably would want to talk to Tommy because I know you're trying to do something. So I would just contact Tommy. He'll help you analyze the deals and all that other stuff. So I would because I know you're trying to do something ASAP. Another one says, would either of you ever purchase that Hilton Head property? Why not? Oh, that's a question for Tommy. Okay, Tommy said I would buy it, but at a much lower price. I believe in that market and location to an extent, but not at that price. Yeah, I love Hilton Head. All right, so tomorrow we're meeting at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, same Zoom link. The homework. Oh, let me share the homework. Hold on. Let me share my screen. Okay. Okay, can y'all see my screen? Okay, so here's the homework. All right, so I want you all to find one real hotel deal online. Share the basic details if you want in the Facebook group. You can run the numbers using the success kit. I'll send the email out or put it in the chat so that way you can use it. Basically what Tommy just did, and to decide would you move forward with this deal or pass, and then let us know in the group. So that is your homework. So this is a true challenge. You had to change your mindset tonight, and then last night, and then tonight you analyzing deals. So I'll see you all tomorrow. Thank you, Tommy. Y'all show Tommy some love.
Appreciate it, Tommy. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you,
Thank
Tom.
you guys.
Tommy.
Thank you for
Thank
attending.
you, guys.
Thank
for
you.
jumping
Thanks,
in.
Tommy.
Put the
Thanks,
workbook
Tommy.
and the deal analyzer in there as well.
Much
Okay.
love to you, Tommy.
See,
All
I
right,
told
here,
you
guys.
he was
Have a good
invited to the
one.
cookout.
Can you just record the recording of this one too, so we can rewatch it while we do that?
Say you all should every night you'll receive a link with the recording.
Okay. All
Yeah, so check your email. It's the same link for all the recording. It's the dashboard.
right. Thank you.
So you all should have received the link, and then you'll receive another link tonight with the recording. You'll get it every night. All right. Thank you all so much for tuning in, and I'll see you all tomorrow night at 7.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, boss. Later. I'll see you tomorrow.